Hobo Sanders.
Hello, how are you this afternoon?
Good, how are you?
Good. Happy Lent. I don't know if that's how you say it. I don't know that Lent is supposed to be happy, but
Or Merry Lent.
yeah, happy Ash Wednesday, although we don't celebrate, we don't do the ashes around here. It's just not something that I have a connection to. And so, from time to time, I've gone and partnered with other groups that do the ashes, but it's just of all of the things that I have been able to acclimate to and adopt from the mainline tradition and just the liturgical calendar, it's the one thing I have not found something that resonates with. And so I didn't do ashes this year, but maybe if somebody's had a good experience with ashes, they could tell me what I'm missing, and that would help me out a little bit. So I have 5 quick topics that I wanted to debrief. First is that we have entered into Lent, and there's a whole bunch of implications from that. One of them being that we've taken down all of our green decorations in here, all our paraments, and transitioned to purple. And it really does give the space a different look, because when the green banners on the side and on the front are down, and it's just the white walls in here and then the purple paraments around, it really does, especially with our chair color, the space really does have a different feel. Like the aesthetic is different and there's a beauty to it. But if for no one else, it signifies to me that we are in a different season, right? It's not all of the bright pageantry of Advent and Christmas. It's not the green of normal time. It's really kind of a more stark and somber thing. So anyway, I find a lot of meaning in it. But John, when you walk into the sanctuary, do you notice, like as the liturgical calendar goes, do you notice the changing of the banners and the paraments? Oh, you do?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I think for some people, they're very aware of it. And for others, like if I quizzed them, they may not even know that it happened. But one of the other things that this signals is that the series that we have been doing about the seasons of faith and the stages of life has come to an end. And so I just wanted to comment a little bit on how much I enjoyed that series. Different people would come to this table, and I asked everybody the same 2 questions. What season of life are you in? And what does faith look like in that season? I absolutely loved those conversations. And we had people, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s at the table. And I just loved hearing the different responses to what season of life people were in and what faith looks like in that season. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who did come to the table over the last couple months and for being so honest, and sharing. Like, I got to tell you, that's one of the favorite conversation series that we've ever done. I got more out of that and felt like the things that people shared from the table were just fantastic. Those 2 questions they work well together. Do you have any comments or reflections on that?
You're welcome.
Thank you. That's funny.
No, I did enjoy the different generations and the different people. That's one thing I love about this church is I love the conversations we have.
Yeah, the multi-generational thing is really important. So that leads me to my next thing, which is that in our second Sunday spiritual practices, we've been going through this thing about accessing the wisdom that's within you or growing into being an elder and sort of moving in that direction. And so we had our second session in February, last Sunday, and it was equally as interesting as the first. And so we continue to have quite generationally, quite a diverse group from people's in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Oh, hi there. And so we're talking about our Second Sunday spiritual practices and how the multi-generational conversation is so much more interesting. And so this idea of moving towards, like, we didn't even, John, did we even journal at all Sunday?
No,
we never got there, right?
All we did is debrief the last month.
There was so much to say. You know, and the other thing that I really appreciated about that group is that about half of the group that was there the first month wasn't able to make it initially. Some of them showed up a little later. But entirely new people were there. So it was like a 50% turnover rate of new people coming to participate. So I just want to say to anybody who listens to this, especially if it gets snowy tomorrow, like and you're trapped inside, like Thursday, you should check this thing out. Up on our website under Second Sunday Spiritual Practices, John has this thing. We're using the book. What's that?
Oh, I didn't realize it was recorded.
Oh,
so excited.
Okay. So from aging to saging, and so we still haven't come up with a good moniker for it, but something like accessing the wisdom within, or getting ready to be whoever you're going to become, or something like that. But I got to tell you, some of the things that were said during our meeting on Sunday really have me thinking in different ways. Like the perspectives that were brought. We had a couple people there from the corporate world, and that's just not a world I'm familiar with. And they were talking about things that, I hadn't thought about them in the terms that they were framing them, like whether it was about using technology or about being good at your job, but not being great in your organization because of your relationship to technology, and like just what it looks like as a community to access that person's wisdom of the thing they're really good at, even if they're not good at everything that the organization's looking for. So that was really interesting to think about. And then there's a couple people in the group who, like me, don't have their own children. And so when you don't have your own children, you don't have the same seasons of life, those chapter markers. And so how do you measure progression? And, and I said, for me, I have figured out actually through this group, this journaling thing we've been doing, that for me, not having children of my own, hi there, not having children of my own, that I actually mark my life in places I have lived, or homes, or, places I've lived, and my education. Like for me, that's what has marked sort of my seasons of life. But for someone else in the group, it was actually decades. Like, well, in my 20s, it was this way. In my 30s, it was this way, right? Because when you don't have your own children, it's like moving in that direction. You don't have the natural progression of things, right? That was just a fascinating conversation. And I'm so glad that we have a congregation where not everyone's expected to be a couple, not everyone's expected to have kids, not everyone's expected, to get married or whatever it is, and that we can talk about what life looks like in different seasons and configurations of your relational web. And I just love that there's no overarching expectation that there's like one way to be a person or a family, and that we say, tell me what this looks like for you. I love it. And I love hearing people's responses. No.
Yeah, it was a great session.
Yeah.
In fact, both of them have been great. And anybody who hasn't participated can still get the exercises off the website and start drilling on them.
Yeah, that's what I initially started saying. So if anybody watches this, like if it snows tomorrow and people are like stuck at home, go to the website, go to Second Sunday Spiritual Practices, and get the PDF that John uploaded and start journaling the exercises. So last month in my journaling, I focused primarily on like other people. Like, who have I seen who's modeled this well? It was a small list. Who have I seen that hasn't modeled this well? That was a longer list. And then, so this month I'm focusing more on myself, which is, what does this look like for me? And, you know, one of the things that was said by somebody who at the group who was in the corporate world is, when you have a big something you don't want that you're working on, you don't want to do it all at one time, because you won't get it right the first time, but you've made a big to-do out of it. And then you have to like fix stuff immediately. And that's called like a waterfall effect or something. What you want to do is take the smallest thing that you can get feedback on and migrate that first. So like if you're moving to a new website, you take the smallest thing you can, move it over, make sure it works, get feedback from people, say, okay, that worked. And then what's the next biggest thing, the next biggest thing? And you just gradually move it all over. And what that made me think of is, you know, you can't just start being an elder at 65. You can't just like flip a switch and say, okay, I'm wise now, right? Like, it's something you have to on-ramp for quite a while, like to say, like, what's the small, so what I did, I'll just say for me personally, I started asking, what's the smallest area of my life that I'm hoping is different in 10 or 20 years that I can start working on this month? And migrate that over. And so that's what I've started doing is working on this. What's the smallest thing? So like for me, it's gracious responses when I don't like what someone said or texted or emailed. It's such a small thing that I can immediately start working on, because in this asynchronous world that we live in, I don't have to respond right away. Right? If I can take a walk and think about how I want to respond. I can light a prayer candle and reflect on what's going on. Why did this upset me so much? You know? And so that, for me, that's the smallest thing that I can work on in the short term that I'm hoping is going to be different in my 50s and 60s.
So not to discourage older people, it's never too late to start.
I didn't mean to say.
And you can work on little things even if you're in your 60s or 70s or 80s.
See, this is, John, thank you. This is why we have to do debriefing in a group is, you know, you're right. I was just saying what was going on in my little bird brain while this person was talking, what was happening for me.
But it's pretty fascinating. We had somebody there in their 20s that's starting to work on this. That person's going to be very wise by the time they get to 65.
That person is going to be pretty wise because they have taken this seriously early, right? That's going to pay huge, like that's going to bear fruit for a long time. That's pretty awesome. But I love being a multi-generational congregation. That's why I brought this up. So, all right. So we'll put that aside for a second. We'll move on to a couple other things. So we're just talking about all the changes that are happening here. So the decorations, the paraments here, we've moved to purple. We've wrapped up the series at the table, asking the same two questions. What season of life are you in? What does faith look like in that season? We talked about Second Sunday Spiritual Practices. And I wanted to talk a little about prayer. So we had a leadership meeting on Monday night that went really well. And it was basically to try and get everybody on the same page, whether you have been serving in leadership here during this last 5 years of transition, or whether you're new to it and just need to get oriented, or third option is that you used to serve when we were a committee system, but you haven't served in the team format that we have now. And so we just wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page. Well, an interesting thing happened after the meeting is that two really wise people, who both of them have a heart for people, like they're very caring people, actually brought up that there might be one flaw in the system that we have. So just to recap real quick, we're moving from a system, the Methodist system of committees, where the structure provides the vision and mission. And what we've moved to 5 years ago is where the mission creates the structure, right? It's a very, very different model. And one of the things they pointed out is that for all the strengths of the simplified missional approach, one limitation, because everything's going to have a limitation, right? One limitation might be that if there is a community or a cause that really does need to be cared about and cared for, but there's no one there to represent that, right? To give voice to this maybe marginalized community, then it won't become a part of the mission of the church. And so who's going to attend to or care for those things which really should be, a part of our mission, but for which no one is there to represent? I thought this was an amazing point. But I said this to them that night, and then I checked with my coach the next day, and I actually checked with a different mentor today to make sure that I'm thinking about this right. And so I'm glad that I responded the way I did Sunday night. So here's what I said. I said, nope. Because in the old system, church council could say, we really need a committee for refugees or for children's education or whatever it is. And then you create the position, and then you say, and who can we put in that position to do that task? That's the old way of doing it. And there's a strength to that. I do admit there's a strength to that. But that's not how this system works. This system says when somebody has a heart for something and they bring it to us, we say, how can we help you to do that ministry? Right? So we wait for God's Spirit to work in someone's heart, and then for that individual to rise up or that group to rise up, and then we resource them, and that's what creates the structure. So the mission creates the structure. And what I realized is this is going to require prayer and faith that we may not have needed or practiced before. We practiced a different kind of. So before we would say, we need a chair for our education committee. And so we would pray, who should be in that position, right? That's one kind of prayer. This is a different kind of prayer. So if somebody comes to us and says, so here's what we're trying to avoid, and then I'll give you a chance to give me feedback on this. What we're trying to avoid is somebody coming and saying, hey, every day when I get off the freeway, I see this community, whether it's people who are experiencing homelessness or a refugee community or whatever it is. I see this community. We really need a ministry for them, or we need to do something for them. And then if we say, well, how can we help you do that ministry? And they say, oh, no, I'm not going to do the ministry. I want you to do the ministry. That's what we're trying to avoid. So this missional model requires for somebody to rise up with something on their heart, and then for the structure to come behind them and resource them. It's different, right? It's the horse and the cart. And the possible downside of the committee system is that sometimes you have a cart and no horse to pull it, right? So what we're doing now as a simplified leadership structure is we're waiting for a horse. And we're not gonna do anything until the horse appears or emerges. And then once the horse appears, we'll say, what kind of cart would you like from us? We have a lot of carts. What kind are you looking for? And how can we help you get that, you know? Well, what I realized is this is going to be pastorally a great opportunity for us to grow in prayer and faith. Because we haven't had to pray this specific way exactly before. It was slightly different because we had the container, we just needed the container filled. So we would ask, who fills that container? And now we wait for the filling and say, what kind of container would be appropriate here?
Yeah, with the old model, you'd end up filling that container with unwilling people. And that doesn't accomplish the mission. You need somebody that has a heart for it if it's going to succeed.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just spinning wheels and wasting time and resources.
Yeah. I mean, each model has its strength and weakness. But I didn't realize until after the meeting on Monday night that this possible weakness of our current model that's more missional, but it actually has a fix to it. It's just a different fix. So it's an opportunity for us to grow in prayer and in faith. So that's going to be, I'm excited about that. That's going to be a good season.
Amen.
Yeah.
To that.
Last idea I wanted to run by you is we have a newsletter that we're working on now. We put out quarterly newsletters, and so it's time for the spring newsletter, which goes through Lent and the Easter season. And so I have to write a little article, there. It's like a little sermonette. But this idea of prayer, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about why prayer doesn't work for so many people. And I came up with an idea. So I want to run the idea past you. I've already submitted the article, but I can edit it before it goes to publication. So I want to run this idea past you and see what you think. I want to suggest that if you're not like passionate about prayer, or you haven't bought into the power of prayer, like if that just hasn't been your experience, I want to throw out an alternative, which is to make prayer a place of possibility. So instead of trying to use the right words or to mean them enough so that they go up to heaven or out into the spiritual realm or however other people conceive of that, forget all of that. Start with where you are. Make prayer that place. So I'll give you for instance. If you're in a room of your house, pray about the activities that happen in that room. Right? So if you're in your bedroom, about sleeping and about rest and about intimacy or whatever it is, make prayer a place. If you're walking around your neighborhood, pray for your neighbors. Make it about that place. If you're in your garden, pray about the fruits and the vegetables and the blooms that will bless someone else that you're going to share them with. Pray in the garden with the garden. If you're by a stream, pray with the water. Maybe even pick up some water and hold it. Pray with the place you're in for that water and those who are dependent on it downstream and the source from which it came upstream. Give thanks, for the mountain and the snow melt, but to pray with the place where you are. What do you think? Is it too woo-woo or is it super practical?
I love it.
Oh, God.
I love it.
Oh, good. That makes me very happy. It made sense in my mind. I just didn't know if it would make sense if I put it out.
Yeah, I'm not sure about your mind either, but this time it's great.
Okay, good. I just think prayer, whenever I hear other people, and God bless people who are passionate about prayer, I'm just not built like them. It's too abstract for me and it's too word-based. And it's just, I never get the words right. I'm never in the, pure of heart place, right? I may not have enough faith. But if I just have to partner with the place I am and pray with that place, I've started doing this because, we got a puppy. And so I'm out in my neighborhood and I'm going to places that I haven't gone before, interacting with people in brand new ways. Like I'm spending my time differently. And I have found myself praying more than I used to. And so I've been thinking about prayer and thinking, why is it working for me now when so often in my life it hasn't? And I really started thinking about place. Oh, the other thing that made me think about it is, they're clearing the ravine behind our church property and up the side of our property. There are more people using that corner of our campus than ever before. And it's not even built yet. Right? They just cleared the trees for the surveyors. There's no path there yet. And people are already using it.
I had no idea that neighborhood was so close to us.
That's right. It's right there.
It's right there.
But it has led me to start praying different because our property doesn't really end anymore like it used to. It just used to, right? It was closed off like a curtain.
Wall of vegetation.
A wall of vegetation. And now it's like a window out into the neighborhood and into the park. And it's got me thinking, like, we could just literally, maybe we've made prayer too complicated. Maybe we could just walk around and just pray with the place. It's an idea. I'm going to be working on it. So if you have any thoughts and you want to email me or text me and help me refine it, we don't go to press for like 48 hours. So if there's anything else or any illustration or any clarification, let me know and I will make the edits.
Excellent. One of the things that I think we desperately need to do is to reconnect with nature on an experiential, personal basis. And that, to me, is exactly how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's merit to this thing. Okay, so those were my 5 topics. Anything you all want to cover?
I was thinking it might be fun to have a spring potluck. A hello to spring potluck.
I agree. I actually talked to somebody about this on Monday. So our problem is we can only feed 50 people. Right? That's still the COVID limitation for groups like ours is we can only have 50. So, but there's a workaround, which is if we had, so the idea that I'm thinking of is if we had like the food on the breezeway and some people sat in the fellowship hall and some people sat out in the picnic area, then we only have to worry about the 50 that are in the fellowship hall.
How many did we have for the spaghetti dinner?
50.
Just 50.
Exactly 50.
Sure, okay.
Exactly 50. We sold 50 tickets.
Right.
Yeah. And served spaghetti to 50 people. But if we could also use the picnic area, it would free us up a little bit.
Oh, depending on the weather, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it depends on the weather. I mean, if it was a nice, sunny, semi-warm day, we could set up chairs outside. pull them out, sit outside.
You know, the other thing we could do is you can rent very large, what are they called? The covers? What are these called?
Canopies.
Canopies, thank you. So we could set up a large canopy and create, so I think if the food is on the breezeway, we had some seating inside and some seating outside, even if we had a canopy, I think we could pull it off, Mary.
Okay.
So,
Or we could have the food in the kitchen where it's going to stay warmer and sit on the breezeway.
yeah. Oh, yeah. We could put one long string of tables and have people sit on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's start working on this.
Okay, that outlet is supposed to be fixed tomorrow so we can have some power out there.
When the roofers were here last year, they tripped our outdoor power outlet that we plug everything into, and we have no idea how to reset it. So the electricians are going to do it for us tomorrow.
Well, hopefully you'll be there so you can explain to them exactly what happened.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's all I know is after the roofers were here, it didn't work anymore. That's literally all I know.
That's what I told them.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for spending this lunch hour with me. I have been looking forward to debriefing because this transition from the series we've been doing of asking the 2 questions, and now we're getting into a Lenten series on doubt and faith after doubt, and I'm really looking forward to it, but it is going to have a different tone, and so I just wanted to celebrate and debrief how much I enjoyed that series and the people who came to the table. I thought they did an excellent job.
It was good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful Ash Wednesday. Is anybody getting ashes anywhere today?
I will be soon.
All right.
I have
Well,
a service in an hour and a half.
John and I, when we first logged on today, I said, Happy Lent. I don't think that's the right greeting. I don't know how to say that. But anyway, I hope that's a good I hope that's a good experience for you getting those ashes. All right. I appreciate you all.
Paul, are you getting more of the Lenten booklets? I looked the other day and there weren't any out there.